Good morning, brethren. Welcome to another daily devotional this morning. Today I want us to turn to the Gospel of Luke, and we're going to think about what we read in Luke chapter 5 and verse 27. There we read, "After this, Jesus went out and saw a tax collector by the name of Levi sitting at his tax booth. 'Follow me,' Jesus said to him. And Levi got up, left everything, and followed him." The tax collectors were utterly despised and hated by their fellow Jews in Jesus' day, and with good reason. These were men who had willingly taken on the responsibility and task of taxing their own people in order to pass on that money to the Roman government. And the tax collectors were seen as traitors by their fellow Jews working for the foreign invading force. They were also hated because not only did the tax collectors collect the requisite tax, they also added to that amount so that they themselves would benefit. In other words, they were lining their pockets with extra charges that they were putting on their fellow Jews. So they were despised, they were hated, they were not even allowed to go into the synagogue. It's surprising, therefore, in some ways, that Jesus would call such a person to be one of his disciples. Surely one would think Jesus would call other people, more respectable people. Why would he call someone who was a social outcast? Why would he call someone who deceived people and took their money? Well, because Jesus came to seek and to save the lost. And Matthew is an example of such a person. Jesus comes to save all kinds. Matthew, of course, here described as Levi. Matthew would have known about Jesus. It's not as if this was the first time that Matthew had ever come across or heard about Jesus. Jesus had been preaching in the area, he'd been performing miracles, he'd been there a while. So obviously his reputation had gone before him, and Matthew must have known all that Jesus had been teaching and all that he had been doing. And that day when Jesus came along and called Matthew to follow him, something happened in Matthew's life. Matthew came to a realization that this man was indeed from God. He realized that what he had been doing was wrong. And he realized the call of God to him to leave behind his life of corruption, to leave behind what for him was a very financially profitable situation, and to throw his lot in with Jesus. It meant for Matthew considerable personal sacrifice to get up and to walk away from his job that day. But that's what it is for everyone. Jesus calls us to follow him. And for many people, it will mean a dramatic change in their way of life. And he comes for the social outcasts. He comes and he says to those who have been alcoholics, to those who've been addicted to gambling, to those who've been prostitutes, to those who have been terrorists. He says to those who have been deceiving people, murderers, follow me. And God's claim upon our life in Jesus Christ will result in radical change and in giving up many things. Matthew had to give up what for him was a very lucrative job. But he was prepared to do that because he knew that Jesus was who he was claiming to be, the Son of God come into this world to save sinners. I do these devotions each day, and I suppose that I work on the presumption that all who listen to them are Christians. Maybe that's a presumption I shouldn't make. Maybe you're not a Christian. Maybe you're a person who has not yet listen to and obey Jesus' call to follow him. We'll look at Levi's example. He left everything and followed Jesus. If you're not a Christian, listen to Jesus calling you today. Follow me, he says. If you are a Christian, remind yourself that following Jesus involves personal sacrifice, and be prepared to leave things behind in order to be fully committed to following the Saviour. Have a good day, folks.